So the first thing that I do once I've got my line drawing is draw a line down the middle. And that's just so that I know that I'm only putting tone on one side, and I have to remind myself of this. And then I start with a really dark area, and you can start with the nose or the eye, but it's good to start with a dark area and get a lovely dark tone on first, because that allows you then to see how dark you need to go with the rest of it and see how your other tones are going to sit across it, because you've got your darkest tone then and your lightest tone, which is your page. And when I'm adding tone to something, I tend to start in one area and then move it, sort of spread across the page. So you can see that I've started on the nose and then I'm working my way out towards the edge of the skull. And it's really important when you're doing something like this that you are constantly looking at your picture. So you're looking at what you are drawing. This is an observational drawing task. And so it's really, really important to use your eyes and observe the different shapes, observe the different tones that you can see in your picture. As I'm moving across the page, you can kind of see, it's a bit tricky, but once I mention it, you'll notice it, that when I'm using, when I want to press lighter, so I'm using lighter pressure, I tend to hold my pencil higher up. So there I'm holding my pencil quite high. But when I want a darker tone, so putting less pressure on, more pressure, then I will hold my pencil further down. So I find it much easier to press lighter if you hold your pencil further up. The only problem with that is that you have slightly less control of your pencil. But if you watch the lighter tones and then here where I'm doing a dark tone, I hold it much further down the pencil. And that's just a little tip. It's really hard to press on hard if you're holding the pencil further up. But you can see that I'm constantly changing the way I hold my pencil as I'm changing the pressure I'm putting on. You might find as you start to add in more tone that areas don't look right, so you might have to go back into them. So the area below the cheekbone, between the jaws, so that really dark area there, it adds quite a lot of depth and tone, but I think I go back into the cheekbone afterwards and redo it, because I've changed the shape of the face. A little bit like when you are using makeup, or if you ever watch contouring videos, you can completely change the shape of a face with makeup. Or stage makeup, or if anyone's ever watched Glow Up, then they completely change the shape of faces with makeup. It's really interesting. But you kind of do the same when you're using tone as well. And actually, if you're into contouring, it's really similar principles, because the point of contouring is to make you look slimmer and like you've got amazing cheekbones. So you're usually, apart from the nose, you've got highlights in all the same places that you would do that in, and you've got low lights or darker areas in the place that you would usually put bronzer. When you're adding tone to the teeth, you want to really make sure that you're treating them as individual teeth. Okay, they are all usually curved and they have their own shadows and their own highlights. So you want to really look at each teeth individually each tooth, individually. And you also might need to correct the shape. So like I said, the shape can change once you start adding tone. So I just rubbed out the shape of one of those bottom teeth and then redid it. And you might find you need to do that with a couple of things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually brilliant to keep reviewing your work and correcting it as you go along. So now I've kind of finished the bottom, so you can see I kind of worked from the middle and then I worked out and towards the bottom. I'm going back up and back into the eye. The eye has a lot of detail in, so really look at the picture. And one of the things that I'm doing here, so obviously I've turned my book upside down, that's because I can only curve my hand one way. So when we did the shape drawing, you may have noticed that I flipped the book around as well, but that's because I really struggled to do curves. I can't work out which way it is, but I struggle to do curves, and it's quite good to get curved marks into the eye, because then it tricks your viewer's eye or your eye into thinking that it's a curved object, a bit like when in year 7 we did the mark making and the shading of the spheres. So you're trying to make it look as though it's kind of going back into the head. It's got a bit of depth to it, which is quite tricky, and it's tricky to do with the tone as well. So when I look at this now, I can see that it's extremely light, so it looks really light. And part of the reason that I can see that is because I've got that lovely dark tone in the nose. So I know that I need to go darker onto it to add a little bit more shade and tone. The other thing that you might have noticed that I did then and now, I changed the way I'm holding my pencil completely to get a slightly different texture and to cover more of my page. And then when you get to these cracks, again, it's really, really important that you keep looking at the picture in front of you, because there's loads of detail around the eye as well. And to get something to look really realistic, you need to be observing those details. So you might not think that something is there, but actually you look at it and you can see it. So that little weird notch on the top of the eye, it doesn't look like it should be there, but it is there in the picture, so you need to draw it. When you get to putting tone on the head, so I was just talking over it there, but that use of the pencil, so kind of using the pencil end on its side, is quite a good trick to get tone down but not go too mental with tone, so to kind of keep it quite subtle, and it just gives that quite nice mottled effect that is on the picture as well. You'll see that I put my pencil down in a second because I think I've finished, and then I do a little bit more. Keep checking.